1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Royal Blue Podcast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Royal Blue Podcast. Sound check. Hello everybody and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast. It is the Monday show, the first show after the Bournemouth defeat. We are live and I am your host Ian Croll. Joining me in the Royal Blue studio today to talk all things Everton, the return of Everton FC reporter Chris Beesley. Chris, how are things?
Well, I just hope that ourselves, the viewers and the listeners will get some sort of catharsis from this experience because, I think everyone is just really sort of numb, really, and just in disbelief over how things finished on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely good. Little brief summary of that to start off with. Connor, how are things? You're good?
They would have been a lot better if the game would have finished at 85 minutes on Saturday, put it this way. Yeah, I think this podcast has often been used as a therapy session, hasn't it, for Blue supporters over the years, and you get the feeling that today is going to be another one of those sessions because, still a little bit shell-shocked by what unfolded in them last 9 minutes at Goodison Park on Saturday because, no one saw that coming, did they?
And 2 shows in a week for you, which is obviously good.
It is 2 shows in a week, Probably should have just dodged this one after what happened on Saturday, but no, got to take the good with the bad, haven't you?
I mean, he text me on the weekend saying I'm coming in.
Yeah, he's like James Tarkowski's fronting up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get the usual plugs out the way. Please hit the bell and give this video a like. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. All the support that you give us is obviously much appreciated. As mentioned, we are live, so please join the debate in the comment section and let us know your thoughts. The agenda then, well, it's going to be all about Bournemouth and the fallout from that. Me and Connor did some reaction videos following on from the game on Saturday, so if you haven't already, go and give them a watch on the Royal Blue YouTube channel. But we're obviously going to talk a little bit more in depth about what happened, the positives and the negatives. It's not all going to be negative. Just because it was defeat, there is a couple of positives to go through. But Chris, start with you first. You weren't working, but you did go to the game. So in a social capacity, just your initial thoughts, really, because let's face it, it was a performance worthy of winning a game at Goodison Park, but, the last 10 minutes were, a horror show, really.
Yeah, just stunned disbelief. It's just a very chastening experience, life lesson that Premier League games have to be played to that final whistle, whether that's the 98th minute these days. You can't take your foot off your gas like that, as you say there, Ian. Wasn't in a working capacity. A rare day off for me on a match day, and I saw Connor before the game. We spoke. He came out and saw me, and I was like a lot of people. Ended of summer holidays there, and I was there with my family, and I was taking my 3 children to Goodison Park for the last time. I knew that I'd be working for the rest of the season, doing all the match days myself, so I don't often get a chance to go with the family, and that's what I'm doing. So if it was hard enough for someone like myself to digest and sort of try and make sense of, just imagine that, of 3 children there, they couldn't believe it. I mean, my eldest was saying to me, she said, still can't believe that Everton lost that game. And I think that was the feeling as everyone was sort of going out of Goodison Park very slowly, very quietly after the final whistle. They couldn't believe what had unfolded, because, as you say, for the great majority of the game, it was goals at half time, and Everton had struggled to break Bournemouth down, but they got the breakthrough early in the second half, played really well, and we can go into all those positives, because you have to try and take the positives from the game, but just utter disbelief at the way things unfolded, and there might be a bit of gallows humour on the show today if we can try and lighten things at times, because it's obviously going to be very depressing otherwise. I actually remember there was a quote once Alan Partridge saying people forget about the Titanic, that there are thousands of miles of pleasurable sailing before they hit the iceberg. But I think Everton hit the iceberg in the 87th minute, and then it ended up very badly.
Connor, you did the player ratings for the
really
website.
sure to follow on from that.
No. Let's finish it there.
Yeah.
You did the player ratings for the website after the game, so if you haven't read that piece, you can go and do so on the Liverpool Echo website. I did player ratings of my own for the Royal Blue YouTube channel, like in a video format. I found it really difficult, to be honest, to try and grade or score the players, because obviously it was a fantastic performance, and then the last 10 minutes I still tried to give the players good scores. What were your thoughts based on that? Obviously I've seen your player ratings, but
what they look like on it, because obviously Chris and all this, you have to start writing them before the game finishes, so we like to publish them literally just the full time whistle goals, and they were pretty much done in 85 minutes, and they looked a hell of a lot different than what they did in terms of what got published. Jordan Pickford alone was one, because he barely had nothing to do for 85 minutes, and then all of a sudden, he makes a save, then he concedes, so you think, well, he's not kept a clean sheet. Then he makes 3 great saves at 2-2, and you're thinking, well, actually he's played a massive part in Everton preserving themselves a point. Obviously, then he goes and concedes. So it was tough to do, to be fair, because like you say, there was so many good performances, and you think of silly Iliman Ndiaye and Dominic Calvert-Lewin both leave the pitch, one at 2-0 and one at 2-1, having both contributed massively to a really good performance, and should end up on the losing side, and they do. But you can't really judge them on that, because they played no part of it. They were both off the pitch when things really did go wrong. So yeah, it was a difficult one to do. It was a difficult game to analyse in general, wasn't it? Because like Chris said earlier, there was for large parts so much to enjoy about that Everton performance. I think it was one of the best performances we've seen under Sean Dyche. To be fair, in terms of a footballing approach, and I think they carved out 3 or 4 good openings in the second half. Played on the front foot. They looked to get the ball down and play a little bit more. When Ndiaye was massively a part of that. Tried to make things happen. So you take that into consideration. It was tough, but then you can't comprehend the capitulation at the end, and there's no excuses for it. And questions are rightly going to be asked, because you can't crumble in the way in which Everton did. It's not acceptable. And we'll probably get onto this, but there is in no world that a back 5 of Jordan Pickford, Seamus Coleman, Michael Keane, James Tarkowski and Vitaly Mikalenko should be all over the place like they was. I mean, there's 5 individuals there who've all captained Everton at different points throughout their careers at Goodison Park. That just should not be allowed to happen. And I think it's at the second goal where Mikalenko's actually passed one of the forward players at the start of the move, and you're thinking, we're 2-1 up, like why is our left back overlapping and trying to get trying to steam forward for more? Why isn't he just holding his position, and then they break and it's 3-on-3, and next thing the ball's into the box and lose Cook's head at home. So yeah, it was a real tough game to analyse on the whole, because there was a large part of it that were very good for Everton. The big thing is that the very small part that wasn't cost them dearly.
Chris, come back to you then. As in our job, in our role, we do try to take a measured approach. Yeah. I think a lot of frustration, does come out in certain aspects of social media. I think, which is fine. I think you're allowed to express that. I mean, I've been accused of having a bit of a anti-Dyche agenda, and that's for me, that's not the case whatsoever. It's more of a, anti-Everton not winning agenda. At the end of the day, so. It's our job to overanalyse things, point fingers, see where it went right, see where it went wrong. 2 questions in one ear for you then. At the end of the day, who takes responsibility, and did Sean Dyche's substitutions contribute to the downfall?
Okay. Well, first of all, I was going to say, actually, on the player ratings, just to finish that one off, even at the best of times, even if things are all rosy in the garden, there's going to be 40,000 opinions on that one.
Yeah,
so
of
I
course.
think it's going to be, the envy Connor for that one. Like you said, it's one thing for the players who got substituted, but I don't know how you sort of score those players who were on at the end and in the back 5 and the way they contributed. So going back to, so what were your 2 actual points there about Dyche taking responsibility?
Well, who takes responsibility? Is it the players? Is it the manager?
Yeah.
And then did the substitutions contribute to Everton losing that game?
I think it has to be both to start with there. Sean Dyche actually said, think people can sort of look at this, and I know obviously I've already spoken to Michael Ball, head of his column, and that'll be one to watch. I mean, he's very forceful as always with his points, and I think he makes them in a good way. Sean Dyche mentioned how he could smell it. Did he say? He said he could smell it. It was happening. He could see this coming after when that first goal went in. Well, as a manager, I guess you've got to be more proactive then, haven't you? And you did see that with Bournemouth making their changes early on, and that obviously ultimately played a big part in that turnaround. For all the good and the bad, and maybe on different point of view than yourself, I've always been a strong defender of Sean Dyche. I think even Dyche's biggest fans would probably have to concede that substitutions and being proactive during games isn't one of his big points, one of his big positive points, in that you could say he's slow to change, and he's obviously certainly he's like the opposite of the tinker man, isn't he? He doesn't make changes unnecessarily, but obviously the times in games where you perhaps have to make more substitutions, and then we're living in the Premier League world now where it is 5 substitutions per game, and that can massively alter the way things go when half your outfield can be changed over a match. So it's weird because you know. I think they use the phrase over in America, a Monday morning quarterback, whereas you sort of analyse everything in retrospect, and you can look at those substitutions and you say, well, Ndiaye was causing all the problems, why did he take him off? Bournemouth were on the back foot with that, or the way that Calvert-Lewin plays, then obviously Beto doesn't hold it up as well. So you could sort of look at it in retrospect and really say, don't know about that, whereas other players were perhaps dead on the feet and should have gone off. So you can look at those substitutions, but at the time you just felt when Everton were 2-0 up, they seemed kind of like standard changes to be making in those sort of game management positions. But I mean, ultimately it was at the back, wasn't it, where it all fell apart such horrendous fashion. So yeah, you could look at the substitutions as well, and that is one thing. Even the Dyche's strongest defenders, and you know, I've said a lot of things positive about Sean Dyche, and this would actually say that substitutions are not one of his strong points, and there's got to be question marks in retrospect of what happened there.
I mean, rightly so, though. You said a lot of positive things about Sean Dyche.
Yeah.
I think no one can argue with that.
Yeah.
In the past. I mean, Connor, the substitutions, let's stick with it. You know, there didn't seem to be any logical reason behind the two that he made. For me, Sean Dyche makes the first one because he thinks the game is won and he wants to give Ndiaye, you know, the applause, the adulation. And then when that happens, we concede. It's the second one for me that's the worst. Now, I know Beto wasn't initially, or he wasn't directly involved in conceding any of the goals, but, you know, he's a for me, not that sort of player that you bring on when you might start to be a little bit under the cosh. He's a pinball machine, you know, of a striker. He can't hold the ball up. He's got no first touch. What you want your striker to do in that instance is to, you know, to be strong, to you know, draw fouls, to do all those type of things. Everything that Dominic Calvert-Lewin was doing at the time, and to bring him off with only a couple of minutes to go. It's not like he was that tired that he needed to bring him off with a couple of minutes to go.
Well, not often this happens, but I agree with everything you just said there. And that doesn't always happen. No, the one for me, going back to the first substitution, I will have sympathy for Sean Dyche here because I kind of see what he was trying to do. I think he thought Ndiaye was a little bit tired, and I think he thought bringing the core on might stretch the game, and he could maybe, you know, he's got a bit more legs to get around the pitch. I personally wouldn't have brought the core on. I'd have brought James Garner on just to get some control, because I think James Garner is quite good at getting on the ball, keeping things ticking over, winning tackle. Like we saw him towards the back end of last season when he played alongside Dyche Gueye. Yeah. He was just good at doing the hard yards with Dyche Gueye, and Everton with the benefits of that. I would have brought James Garner on for that, just to see the game up basically and not do nothing stupid, just go on, you know, kind of the head kick and tackle, keep things simple. So I have sympathy with Sean Dyche on the Ndiaye substitution. I just think he brought the wrong person on into core. I'd have brought James Garner on personally.
So you still would have took Ndiaye off, but you would have brought Garner on?
I mean, I'm not saying I would have took him off, but I can see the reasoning behind why maybe he wants to make that substitution and introduce some fresh legs. And obviously, he's probably thought as well by putting Dwight McNeil onto the left that would, you know, give a little bit more energy. And obviously, Dwight McNeil's more natural there. You know, can play a bit more defensive minded, I think, as well. I think it's safe to say. But I do agree on the Calvert-Lewin Beto one. I was flabbergasted. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think he's managed to make that when it's 2-0. Because I think it was quite interesting, wasn't it, that literally Bournemouth scored and they made the substitution. Because it was clear, I think they must have been ready. They must have been waiting to do it for when before they've scored, but they still done it. I think one thing about Saturday's show to me is there's no debate now about who's Everton's best forward is at the football club. It's Dominic. I mean, me and Chris have the champion Calvert-Lewin all summer, but he's the best forward Everton have got by an absolute country mile. Yeah. I thought once he got that goal on Saturday, he played like a man possession. You could see that it gave him a huge confidence boost. But even before that, in the first half, he just holds the ball up like no one else can. You know, there was times where he's running down the corners. I think there's one where he chased the lost cause and ends up winning the corner. That type of side to his play, no one can match. And I just think them final few minutes were crying out for him just to carry on, hold the ball up at the pitch, relieve the pressure. And he's used to doing that because obviously, I was fortunate to speak to him last season after one game, and he basically referenced himself and said, well, when I play number 9, there's a lot of pressure on me because I'm up there by myself and I know I've got a real big job to do. I don't really have anyone who plays off me. It's my responsibility to hold the ball up, relieve the pressure off the back four, allow the midfield to get up the pitch. And I think as soon as he went off on Saturday, Everton lost all hope of doing that. And it come at the worst possible time because that was when we were crying out for someone just to be able to hold the ball up, relieve the pressure, try and maybe a few silly free kicks, just to kill a bit of time. As soon as Beto come on, Beto's wild, isn't he? And he's a bit erratic, but I don't think he hasn't got the hold up play that Calvert-Lewin possesses, and that was clear to see because nothing really stuck to it in them closing minutes up top. And if anything, it felt like every time the ball went forward, no sooner did it go forward, it was coming back at Everton, and there was just massive gaps all over the pitch. So yeah, I have sympathy with the Ndiaye one. I think it was the wrong personnel where Sean Dyche went wrong there, but the Calvert-Lewin one just left me scratching my head because I think Beto just doesn't offer what Calvert-Lewin does, and I think them last few minutes, if anything, were crying out for Calvert-Lewin just to hold the ball up and relieve some pressure, and obviously they couldn't do that because Beto just doesn't possess the same skills. I
mean, Chris, for me, they looked like there was more players out there exhausted than Ndiaye was. I mean, Iliman seemed to be, exhausted.
He's off the last 2 goals, isn't he? Which I didn't realise till I saw the highlights back.
Which I agree with you. Probably, I know again you'll come back in hindsight, and that's fine. It's our job to do so. But Garner comes on for Iliman. I would have even maybe has gone as far as to say bring O'Brien on if Bournemouth were throwing crosses in the box. He would have been perfect, to head that out. Is that for you the worst part of it? The second sub. Because he does, for me, he thinks the game's won with Ndiaye. He wants to give him the applause and adulation.
Yeah, like you say, so many. Just got to be more proactive generally, haven't you? I said, hopefully it's just a freak result. That's what we've got to hope, haven't we? The fact that this doesn't become any sort of regular occurrence. It's the sort of thing that nobody inside Goodison, whether young or old, whether they, my kids, someone else's kids, or your Everton Dars out there who've seen it all,
Or granddads.
Granddads even, yeah, I know. Connor's granddad goes for a pint afterwards. Yeah.
You had more than one on Saturday.
Yeah. Nobody probably seen that in their life, have they? And,
first time in the Premier League.
Yeah, certainly in the Premier League. I mean, but I was just trying to get an answer. Like Gav's up, we just discussed Gav's on his jollies at the moment, and I was speaking to Everton's statistician after this, and I was saying, surely there's never been a result like that, in Everton history, never mind Premier League, because if you think back before the Premier League, you probably have very little stoppage time, like you wouldn't get like your 8 minutes like you tend to get a lot of the time now and all that lot. So you would have literally had to have conceded 3 goals in 3 minutes at the end of a game for it to have been later than that. Well, in terms of with the substitution, like you say, the first one, it's like it's the game's won, isn't it? And we can all sort of pick the bones out of it afterwards and says, well, that Ndiaye was just asking all the questions, and then he changed it round, and then that all stopped. But that didn't necessarily mean that, like you say, the problems were at the other end, and whether it should have been Jake O'Brien coming on or whatever. Yeah, go back to my previous point where Dyche is saying, you could smell it happen, and well, that's where your manager's got to intervene and do something, because as soon as that first one goes in, well, have a word.
You
with
just
the players.
knew it.
Yeah.
I didn't think we'd get beat, but I didn't think we'd win the game as soon as that first one went in. You could sense it, whatever, smell it, whatever. It was coming.
Yeah, and like you say, Jordan Pickford, a couple of worldies in between that. They're clinging on, and that should never happen. It's come at the worst possible time, of course, because obviously it's international break now, and Everton could have gone into that with a bit of momentum. Tough back-to-back away fixtures. I know there's the Carabao Cup game in between that, but 2 back-to-back away fixtures, tough ones in the Premier League on the horizon now. Yeah, just everything about it, unfortunately, was disastrous, and it just so easily could have been avoided.
I mean, Connor, because there's never actually been a result like this in the Premier League, as in terms of a comeback, it's interesting that seems to be the case. As the 5 subs rule killed Everton and Sean Dyche here, as the Bournemouth manager got one over on Sean Dyche, because he's literally changed half of his team, freshened it up. I mean, Bournemouth offered, I don't want to take away from our performance because I thought we were good, but Bournemouth didn't really offer anything for 86 minutes then scored.
I know what you're saying on this, and this has been pointed out before, hasn't it, of this is where Everton are playing major catch because they don't have a squad capable of playing the 5 sub rule. Because I think other clubs and other can utilise it quite well. I mean, you look yesterday, I think Liverpool bringing people like Nunes and people like that on. It's obviously worlds apart from what Everton, Sean Dyche concerned to. Certainly when you think of Tottenham the other week when he had 14 fit senior first team players, it doesn't play into Everton's hands. The biggest thing for me, forget subs, forget personnel, they just stopped doing the basics because the goals they conceded were dreadful. They weren't good goals. And that's the big frustration for me is that, if Bournemouth get back into the game with someone scores a 25, 30 yard worldie out of nothing, that hits the bar and goes in, and it's probably one of the best goals you might see all season, you can go, that worldie, spared the one, and it knocked our confidence and stuff like that, and it come from a ball from the blue type thing, but it wasn't. The goals were just crosses into the box. I mean, the cross for the third goal was really good, but how's he unmarked to the back post by himself? And the other 2, they just boxed the balls into the box. They're not great crosses. They're just balls into the box, and that's the thing. What really annoyed me on Saturday was just how easy the goals were. Because you look at Sean Dyche, and one of his big strengths since he become Everton manager is the kind of defensive resilience. And you think of last season, how solid they were in terms of keeping clean sheets, and they were very, very good defensively. And if anything, we always had question marks to be over the attack and play and how we're going to score a goal. But, probably with the exception of Chelsea away on that Monday night, they were relatively quite defensively solid. And the only times they would concede goals when they make bad mistakes. You think of Old Trafford where they were large in the game, but Ben Godfrey give one goal away and someone else give another goal away and the game was gone. But so far this season, the goals that Everton have conceded have been really poor from a defensive point of view. And that's the big worry for me, is because the defensive resilience was something that was so strong, and if that's now folding a little bit, and there's only Jared Branthwaite who's not been playing, it's pretty much the same back 5, bar and Branthwaite, who hasn't been. But yeah, I mean, so I know what you're saying on the 5 sub rule and stuff like that, and squads and stuff. But I just think if Everton would have done the basics right and defended well, then they probably they win the game. They didn't, and they allowed Bournemouth to score 3 easy goals.
So just on the back of that, just kind of point out, it's not like it was the previous week where you had young debutant like Roman Dixon playing. That back 5 was 5 internationals, 5 players capped by their respective countries.
They've all capped Everton at various points in Goodison
So there you go. And in terms of the sub and 5 sub rule, I think that they were down to the bare bones the previous week at Tottenham, but I actually think Everton should be in a stronger position for that this season. I mean, they really struggled last year. Dyche didn't want to make substitutions, probably couldn't make substitutions a lot of the time. But I actually think there's probably actually a bit more strength and depth and a few more options this season. So, yeah, they should be able to be doing better with that than they were last season. I'm
glad you said that, because I just want to clarify that when I bring up the 5 subs rule, I'm not using that as an excuse. I'm basically saying the Bournemouth manager used his five subs to the best of his knowledge and ability. He got one over on Sean Dyche, where Sean Dyche, we at times we've already brought this up, but he doesn't make subs when we need him to make subs, when we're getting beat, and then when we're winning, he makes unnecessary changes that for me were just a little bit tactically inept, a little bit brain dead. I know that might be a little bit harsh, but the Bournemouth manager has got one over on Sean Dyche there, and like you've just said there, Chris, there was options, there was different options to make. You've already pointed out you would have brought Garner on. I would have done the same. I would have brought potentially O'Brien on. I certainly, again, I go back to it. It's fine for the Ndiaye one because I think he thinks the game's won, even though it's not really fine. Because, like you said, Chris, you play until the final whistle.
Yeah.
It's the tactical. You know, I don't know what's going through his mind when he brings Better on. I really don't, unless he just thinks we were going to bring him on anyway. Let's continue to do that. He should have reacted. He should have done something about it.
Yeah, I mean, you live and learn, don't you?
Well, there you go.
Is that the moral of the story? Is it?
No, but like, I think what it will be interesting with the 5 sub rule, and this is maybe going for a bit of a tangent, but is post. After going back from the September international break going into October, when you suspect Everton's squad will be off, because obviously I think there's concern at the minute that, like I said, Lindstrom is perhaps not as up to speed as what he probably needs to be, and he's got a little bit way to go. And obviously James Garner's just coming back from injury, and you know it's been a bit of a stop-start pre-season as if for some of the players, and some come back late, some come in late. When they all get up to speed, which you'd like to think isn't too far away, and Sean Dyche does have them. You know, and Armando Broja comes into the thinking. You know, don't forget. Obviously, you know he's a summer signing who's come in. When them players come into the thinking and they're on the bench, that's when I think we'll really see what Sean Dyche thinks on the 5 sub rule, because then there will be no reason why he shouldn't be able to make 5 subs, because you would like to think that we would have the quality in reserve to come off the pitch. You know, I agree with Chris. I think last season you can't judge Sean Dyche on the 5 subs rule last season because he didn't have the squad at his disposal. I mean, you think of, you know, deadline day, for instance, last summer, you know, Alex Iwobi and Tom Cannon both left because they were good deals financially for the football club from a business perspective, but they left 2 massive gaping holes in Sean Dyche's squad that were never really filled, you know. So you can't judge him on last season because he was operating, I think, with one hand behind his back because of the squad that he had at his disposal. This season, I think it will be interesting from maybe October onwards when more players come back into the thinking and are up to speed with things and are fully fit, whether he is intent on making 5 subs and will make 5 subs like we see other managers do, or whether he'll be thinking, actually, no, I'm not a big believer in this and I want to stick with what I know and what I've always done.
I mean, Chris Dyche obviously did his media duties after the game, reacted to the defeat. A little quote from him here. He says, quote, "I've talked to them endlessly about the game management and they just got a bit carried away with the day, and I think they played so well." I mean, is he taking any responsibility in his post-match interview? I know that's one little snippet, that's fine, but is he taking any responsibility? Is he not just, you know, piling the blame on the players?
So just on that, that's a bit harsh because he did say that the responsibility stops for him. He did say that in his post-match presser.
There you go. Should have come to you on that one then.
He did. In fairness, he said, because someone asked about responsibility, and he said, "Well, obviously, I'm the manager, and the responsibility stops with me." So he did. Kind of say the buck stops with him.
That's fine.
So you've got to give him credit for that. I know there'll be money blues out there that won't be giving him credit.
Under the bus there.
I'll just save you on that one piece. They're getting the manager, the gaffer's bad books.
Well, you know, obviously, let's talk some positives then for a sad step into this podcast. There was a lot of positives, despite you know, I just can't believe how that game ended up. It was so weird. Me feelings, I've never felt, you know, feelings like that after the game because of how well we played. What positives then can you take from it all, Chris?
Yeah, like you say, it's just so strange. A game at that level, Premier League level, okay, you might see it on the parks, but you know, at that level, just games like that just don't happen. So yeah, it's just totally weird. Iliman Ndiaye and Tim Robin, like you said before, the late collapse. Thing with Ndiaye, and again, I'm sort of putting a fresh pair of eyes on this. One of my kids, she was saying about how he really sort of caught the eye. And he plays in a way which is very different than a lot of the Everton players we've seen in recent years, and the way that, you know, he will dribble at people and go at people, like you say, get the fouls, force the fouls out of them. Just a bit of excitement in the way that he plays, but at least there's an end product to it as well. It's not like some of the older blues I remember, like myself, Peter Beardsley, where, you know, he'd go one way then the other and the dribbling. It's almost like he'd try and beat his full back a second time just because it was a bit of fun for him. And Ndyaye's got that sort of skill set to get you excited, but then he's got the end product to either get a shot in or a cross in himself. So yeah, the way he played is a lot more dynamic, and if we can, obviously he's still a very young player, Timur Obenham, and the way he's learning the game, and he was cruelly exposed at the end. He's still very much a rookie, but he's so much ahead of where I guess we would have thought he would have been at this time when he first came in. There was sort of the noises, the mood music around it was, this is a young player, you know, he's not played much for Aston Villa, sort of maybe play for the under-21, sort of be introduced slowly into the first team setup. It's been exactly the opposite. He's been playing most of the time in pre-season, done really well in pre-season, and he's, on the whole, he's carried that on. And again, I suppose it might be one to talk about close to the time that they go to Aston Villa, but although Amadou Onana has obviously a greater profile and has achieved much more in his career and may go on to do much more, but in terms of what Everton need and suitability for Everton, he actually seems to be a lot more dynamic in that position and bringing Everton what they need. So yeah, that, and then I would also say Dominic Calvert-Lewin, of course, getting the first goal of the season, big moment for him. Absolutely made up that he stayed. I mean, it was my birthday on deadline day, and I had a bit of a close. Last year, the Doncaster Rovers Carabao Cup tie almost ruined my birthday before that one came good in the end. And I was thinking, just, you know, late bid comes in for Calvert-Lewin. You know, after working so hard to keep Jared Bramthwaite all summer, you just wondered would he go. And I just think that could be a massive thing for Everton, keeping hold of Calvert-Lewin. We discussed it at length all summer. You know, what would we do? Would we cash in or would we keep? And I think everyone I've spoken to actually believed that was massive to keep Calvert-Lewin. So for him to get his goal as well, I mean, that was a big positive. And then even, I guess, Michael Keane again showing what a finisher he is. I mean, once Bramthwaite's fit, you think he might be struggling for minutes. Obviously, they brought in Jake O'Brien again, but again, he's shown that, you know, he's a good finisher.
Sticking with Ndiaye then, Connor, and, you know, continuing on with the positive theme of what Chris has, you know, just alluded to. He's had two really good performances. First against Doncaster, obviously against lower league opposition, but then he's man of the match effectively against Bournemouth, you know, Premier League opposition. Is it not more baffling then that that Dyche didn't start him against Brighton? Because all this talk about these players aren't ready or, you know, experience, you know, we kind of going with what he knows. I don't want to harp on it back to the Brighton game, but I still feel like that was a missed opportunity, regardless of how well Brighton have done so far this season. It just seems to me that he's been ready from the off, and he's proved it in the last two games.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know the fitness reasons to be behind. We don't know what the results were showing in that final week. Obviously, you know, it's all data driven these days, isn't it? The sports science element, so we don't know what that was saying. All I think you can do is look at the positives in that he's in now, and he looks like he'll be a mainstay in this team, doesn't it, for some time to come. I agree with complete what Chris says. He's got something that not many Everton players in this squad have got. Well, in fact, he's probably the only one who's got that little bit of ability to make something happen out of nothing. I think he was a real positive. I think he'll only get better and better. It actually reminds me of times like watching Stephen Pienaar, which I know is probably high praise given how well Pienaar's done over his two spells at the football club. But that personally, someone who's not blazed with a lot of pace. I don't think he's got he's one of the fastest speed mergers, but he's got that ability to just drift away from players and keep control of the ball. I don't think we've seen that for a long time. So yeah, I think he was the real big positive. And I think what Chris said there, you know, you've got to look at it from an Everton perspective of it was a good performance. And the squad depth that is going to come, you know, obviously Jared Bramthwaite should return, hopefully in the not so distant future. Nathan Patterson should return not so soon. Armando Broja now comes into the thinking. You know, you've got Lindstrom, you've got James Garner. You know, there's
Mangala as well.
Mangala, of course, who's joined the football club. So there's plenty of options there now for Sean Dyche at his disposal, and you know. That again, I think, is a big help because obviously we saw it last year, didn't we? When Everton could get their best 11 on the pitch, they'd done quite well. Yeah. The problem was that when they started getting injuries, and you know, you think of that spell, don't you, over from Burnley on December 16th to February when Decore missed. I think he missed all bar one game because he obviously had a muscle injury, and Everton just lost away. And you think, well, one player shouldn't be relying on one player as much, but obviously they were. So now the squad looks strong, and you just got to hope, you know, once they get that first elusive win, that'll be it then, and he can find a run of form, and they'll start, you know, picking more points up. And and clamp the league table. And I think as well, just to finish on the positives, I think a massive shout out to the club in the 1878 for the Kevin Campbell tribute before the game. I thought that was really, really good.
Absolutely.
And certainly the 1878s with the cards in the park hens, which read Super Kev, I thought that was incredibly moving. And, you know, it looked in it for so long like it was going to be a fitting tribute to Everton's former number 9 with the current number 9 scoring one and creating one, and, you know, it wasn't to be. But, you know, hats off to everyone who was involved in that, because it was really, really good.
Fitting tribute, I think.
It was a fitting tribute, to a true Everton giant, I think it's safe to say.
Absolutely. Sorry, I was just trying to go through some comments so that we can read out before the end of the show. Chris, you know, 3 games in, so you probably know where this is going, don't you?
Oh, go on.
No, I don't want to be like, you see it all the time, a lot of people criticising Dyche and Dyche out and stuff like that. You know, you see it, and I know on Twitter and, you know, social media, it can't be considered the main barometer for Everton opinion or football opinion, but, you know, I'm just going to read some mini stats here.
Okay.
We've obviously lost our first 3 Premier League games, but we've got 5 wins in the last 24 and 22 points out of a possible 72. He kept us up. I guess that's, you know, we're thankful for that, and that's the main overriding stats that you wanna look into. But it's not a good start at the end of the day. I know it was a good performance, but after this international break now, it's Villa, Leicester, both away.
Yeah.
Then Crystal Palace. Where are you on the situation, and where do you see our next win coming, really?
Yeah. I think it's very difficult. There's so many painful moments for Evertonians, isn't there? And like I think Joe wrote in his verdict, you know, just when you think they've taken a step forward, then something happens like this and take a step back. Unfortunately, last season started in a similar manner in terms of they didn't get their first win. It wasn't until October, wasn't it? So again, Bournemouth, wasn't it? First,
Brentford. Brentford
sorry,
away.
first home win, it was at Brentford, wasn't it? Brentford away at the end of September, and then first home win was the following week at Bournemouth. Yeah. So it looks like it could be sort of panning out similar to that, and that's bitterly disappointing, given that we sort of looked at those fixtures, and I think when they came out, you'd said, okay, everyone knew Tottenham was going to be tough. Like those home games against Brighton and Bournemouth, quite rightly, you was thinking, there's points to be had there. I think everyone at the moment, it's extreme because of the way things unravelled. In many ways, if you sort of take out the pain, the numbness of just the ridiculousness of it on Saturday, there's a lot more to get out of that positive than the previous week at Tottenham, where they were just well beaten. They were just, you know, sort of tossed aside by Tottenham. We have to try at least to be measured in that. And what I would say is that for me, this season is all about just people keeping their heads and doing the right things and sort of getting Everton intact to that new stadium as a Premier League club. Just don't do anything stupid. And to be fair with the people at the top, if you'd have said to us back on 1st of June, you know, just after Felwell had made his comments in the final programme of last season when he said players will have to be sold, if you'd have said, well, Jared Bramthwaite still be at Everton, Dominic Calvert-Lewin still be at Everton, and had signed 8 players over the summer, I think we'd all have taken that. We'd all been very, very pleased with that. And that's why I think, whatever you think of Sean Dyche, good, bad or indifferent, and obviously things will sort of take their natural course when a new owner comes in and his contract expires at the end of the season. I think if Sean Dyche stays in now, the fact that you've got Bramthwaite to come, it's going to be a huge booster. Calvert-Lewin's up and running. I think if everyone just keeps their head, Everton can still finish like 12th or 13th this season. I think, and then just don't do anything silly. They've got that strength and depth now. They've got all those positives that we talk about. It's quite right that we talk about all those incredible negatives of the way the game finished on Saturday. I think if everyone just keeps their head, keeps things ticking over, we just want a season that doesn't have all the dramas of last year and the year before that, and, you know, on and off the field. I think Everton can still have a decent season and sort of avoid major catastrophes. But yeah, it's gonna be tough these next few weeks, because obviously until they do get that win, And they really should have got it on Saturday. You know, everyone's going to get increasingly twitchy until that moment comes.
Connor, you know, pretty much the same question. A lot of fans suggesting that Saturday was kind of the last straw, but there's still definitely a lot of fans, you know, in support of Dyche. Kind of like, you know, what Chris is saying there. Maybe give him time. A win will come. Where are you on it all?
You still got to stick with him. Give him time. I think, you know, one thing. We spoke about the options he's got, but he hasn't probably had all them. He hasn't had them options available to him. He hasn't had the chance to put his best team out, has he, this season? I think it's safe to say.
No, certainly with Brampway out.
Yeah, you know, and probably now with Ndiaye maybe coming in, and you know, obviously Timmy Baboom has emerged as this, you know, gem that perhaps we didn't see coming. Yeah. So yeah, I think you've got to give him time. You've got to, you know, certainly got enough credit in the bank for what he's done the last 2 seasons. You know, when he first come in, keeping Everton up the way he did. No one. You know, I think we all got really nervous after the Newcastle hammering with the 4-1 home game last season. You know, the way it looked like it was turning one way, and then he done extremely well to turn it back the other way, didn't he? With them 3 wins in 6 days, you know, they were solid. Got points on the board. So yeah, he's got more than enough credit in the bank, I think. Naturally, and I did write this, you know, naturally for Dyche, you know, boom often, you know, bus stops and follows booms, doesn't it? The modern day Everton. And questions will grow after that, because that's only natural, because obviously, you know, everyone was hurting and probably, you know, a little bit seething by what they witnessed unfold. But I think, you know, in the cold light of day, he's got more than enough credit in the bank and deserves enough a lot more time to turn things around.
That's fine, and I don't necessarily disagree with you, despite my obvious frustrations with Sean Dyche. You know, you do say that he hasn't had a chance to put out his full strength team. You know, the only really player that he hasn't been able to put out is Jared Branthwaite.
Well, no, because you could say Ndiaye's now emerged as someone who you play every week, wouldn't you?
No, which is fine, but he's had the option to put him out from the start.
But if he wasn't fit, though, we don't. This is what I'm saying. We don't know, do we? If he wasn't at the fitness levels required to play, then he's not going to play, is he? And like we've seen, Sean Dyche is the ultra cautious manager when it comes to this. Yeah. I think in the past we've seen managers who've probably taken the let's face it, Dominic Calvert-Lewin is a prime example of. There's been managers at Everton who've clearly gambled on him being 70% fit and put him in, and it's backfired because he then gets injured and spends even more time on the sideline. Dyche didn't play until he was probably 150% fit, but he's reaped the benefits because you think of how well he played last season when it mattered most, and you look at this season, he looks again a better player for it. Now he's got a goal, you just hope that he'd kick on. I thought once he got that goal on Saturday, he'd become a different animal up top. I thought he'd been really good before that, but he was outstanding. So we don't know the science behind what Sean Dyche bases these things on.
Look, I'm going to come back at you there, and I think all of it is speculation because Ndie's been available, and I don't want to dwell too much on this point. It's not the point I'm trying to make. I think it is a big glaring admission from the starting 11, Jared Branthwaite. We joked, it was me and you, wasn't it, the other day, joked that Manchester United only wanted to spend 45 million. Well, he's probably worth 150 million to us now. He's priceless. He's priceless. Exactly. That was the joke, yeah. Which is fine. So I get that. You know, he could come in to the starting lineup and he could change everything. Because let's face it, how many goals we conceded in 3 Premier League
10
games?
goals.
10. So there's obviously an issue, regardless of whether Saturday's performance was good enough. There's an issue. But he's also spent £18 million on a central defender in Jake O'Brien. And okay, Michael Keane scored.
£80 million?
18 million.
Oh, yeah, I thought you said 80.
That would be great, wouldn't it? He spent the money on Jake O'Brien, and I know you're going to go, well, he might not be fit and he might be this and stuff like that. But, you know, 3 goals against Brighton, 4 against Tottenham, 3 against Bournemouth. Keane scored on Saturday, so that's fine. Like, you know, it's hard to argue that. But one of Sean Dyche's biggest strengths is setting his team up to defend, and at the end of the day, would be the 4th most clean sheets. So he deserves all praise for that. But this season, I feel like he's sticking kind of with what he knows, and it's failing. It's failed so far, regardless of whether he wanted. So I think the point is, other than Jared Branthwaite, he has been able to pick his best side for me.
Well, that's your opinion, isn't it?
Okay.
No, I mean, I know what you're saying. I think it's tough. Well, it's tough, isn't it? Because I just think you've got to give him more time and to make a proper judgment call. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I think he's got a tough few weeks ahead of him when he gets back off that international break because, like Chris alluded to earlier, they're not easy away games to go to. You know, Villa Park is. I know Everton won there in the Carabao Cup last season, didn't he? But prior to that, it's been a notoriously tough place for the Blues to crack down the years. And Leicester away probably already has a bit of a edgy relegation fear about it, doesn't it? It's in many people's eyes because of where Leicester find themselves in the league table. So, yeah, there are 2 huge games coming up for Dyche, which probably will start making more judgment calls, won't we, as we get to the end of September, heading into October.
Okay, well, we are going to finish off in a minute. I'm going to read some of the comments out. But, Chris, the most frustrating thing for me is the fact that it is an international break now. We've got 2 weeks left to stew. You know, it's going to be not even at the back of our mind. It's going to be at the forefront of our minds. Really frustrating now that we can't just put this behind us, and it's just going to linger for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. You just couldn't. Well, let's not sugarcoat it. You know, it couldn't have been worse. Really, timing. That was a good thing. At least after Tottenham, you had the Doncaster Rovers Carabao Cup game. You know, a couple of days later, get it out the system, get a few goals, bit of feel good. Should have and almost was taken over to Saturday. So yeah, you know, we can't. There's no 2 ways about it. It's absolutely awful timing. I've heard there's potential they might have some sort of bounce game again in there. I don't know when and where that might be taking place. Maybe give some of the players a few minutes. But yeah, it's you know, couldn't be worse, unfortunately, in terms of a timing point of view. At least the only good thing you'd say is maybe it's an extra couple of weeks for the likes of Bramprey and Patterson to work on the fitness, although latest we hear is that they may well not be back for those first fixtures back. But yeah, couldn't have been worse from a timing point of view, unfortunately.
Okay, comments then to finish off. I'll just read some out, and then if you want to jump in with an agreement or an opinion, then do so. Dyche took no responsibility and lost the players. The audacity to blame it on them was not a good sight to see. You can't have said that. He didn't blame it on the players as such. He did take responsibility, which is fine. That's fair enough. Fazet 1992 says, everyone forgets the month we went without a home win. Everyone, including myself, wanted them out before the derby, and then we won the derby, but now that's worn off. The problem is him, and has been. Is he the problem?
These are anti-Dyche quotes, aren't they?
I'm trying to find some. I'm trying to find some.
We're not got any like rational, other, you know,
okay.
both sides of the story.
No, that's. I'm trying my best.
I would just think that, you know, whatever you think about Sean Dyche, 8 managers in 8 years, it's not good if you keep just going down that route. Like I said, out contracts in the summer. Those, you know, hopefully the ownership is sorted by then. You know, these things will look after themselves. But yeah, I just can't think managerial churn. You just thinking that's, you know, gonna change things. I just don't want to go down that road.
I found 2 positive Dyche comments. Stop with the Moyes shouts, for God's sake. Let's go forward, not 11 years backwards.
Well, we've not mentioned him, have we?
I didn't want to mention him.
We haven't mentioned him.
No, because we've still, you know, Sean Dyche is still the Everton manager. So, but you know, there's a comment. Okay, Terry McAllister, who you know, we speak to every now and then on Twitter. He reacts to some of our posts. He says, I know a lot of people who don't like Dyche to begin with, and everyone will say it's on him, but no subs in history should cause a team to concede 3 goals after 87 minutes. Shame on those players.
I agree. I think the players got to take responsibility. Back 5 especially, far too experienced. As Chris said, 5 internationals shouldn't be conceding the goals they conceded with the ease in which what occurred on Saturday afternoon.
Someone says his in-game management will get us relegated. The Premier League is far stronger this year, and it'll be harder for us to stay up. I do kind of agree with that. I think the Premier League certainly
in-game management has kept Everton up the last 2 seasons, though, hasn't it?
That's fine, but the Premier League is definitely a lot stronger this year in the bottom, you know, the bottom echelons of the league.
But you'd like to think Everton a lot stronger, though, wouldn't you? When they get a full squad available.
I do think Everton are a lot stronger, and I think we've got a core group of players there with some talent and players who could go on. I do think there is, you know, legitimate concerns.
This is the worst thing, isn't it, of all? I mean, just to finish on this, you know, this is what I mean in terms of like the questions grow, because if they win on Saturday, we're not sitting here having any of these debates, are we?
No, but we did lose.
But yeah, we did. But this is what I'm saying. It's like this is what happens, isn't it? It just grows. Like the questions just grow, and you think if the players would just defend it properly and done the basics till the final whistle, we wouldn't be sat here having these debates.
Okay, well, I've enjoyed it regardless.
Yeah, be a good sparring session, hasn't it?
It's been good. We did say, is it going to be therapy? And I said, I don't think I'll come out feeling better, but I actually do come out feeling better.
So the viewers and listeners, do to a point as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've got plenty of comments, so you know, if you wanted to, you could go and read them. I'm not going to be able to read them all out, and Chris and Connor have got a lot to do today, and I've got podcasts still to produce. So we will finish there. Before we do, any final remarks? Let's finish on something positive. Come on.
Well, I just think that, like I said, that I still honestly believe this can be a season which Everton aren't dragged into a relegation fight, as long as everyone just keeps their heads, and that was absolutely massive. I know in terms of like I said, the transfers, keeping Calvert-Lewin, you just wondered on transfer deadline day, was something going to happen there? That could be massive for me. Just keeping him. He's not prolific, but he should, like Connor says, streets ahead of anything else the club have got up top.
Yeah, and I agree with Chris. I think positives to take. Good performance for 85 minutes. Another day we probably see it out. You just got to hope that it's a freak result, freak sequence of events, and that will hopefully will never be repeated. Because if they are repeated, I don't know where we'd turn. To be quite frank.
Okay, well, that is all for today's show. Continue to stick with the Royal Blue YouTube channel for all Everton content, as well as the Liverpool Echo website for all the written content. If you haven't already, remember to give the video a like, hit the bell, and also subscribe to the Royal Blue YouTube channel. And anyone listening to Apple and Spotify, the audio side of the podcast, also give us a review. We'll finish there then, yeah? I've been Ian Croll, joined by Chris Beesley and Connor O'Neill, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.